Have you ever felt a presence in your room at night? That unsettling sensation that you're not alone, even when the doors are locked and the windows are shut tight? It's a feeling that starts as a prickle on the back of your neck, a sudden drop in temperature, a shadow that darts just at the edge of your vision. You tell yourself it's just your imagination, your house settling, the wind playing tricks. But what if it isn't? What if something is really there, watching you from the darkest corner of your room? Tonight, we're going to explore that very feeling. We're diving into stories that blur the line between what's real and what's a nightmare. Forget what you think you know about ghost stories. These are different. These are the whispers you hear when you're home alone, the figures you glimpse in a mirror, the footsteps that echo in an empty hallway. Our first story comes from a user named Mark, who moved into an old Victorian house with his family. They were thrilled with the vintage charm, the intricate woodwork, the sense of history. But the history of that house was darker than they could have ever imagined. It started subtly. Objects would move on their own, a book falling from a shelf, a door creaking open. They dismissed it as drafts and old foundations. Then came the whispers. Faint at first, like the static of a distant radio, they slowly grew clearer. Late at night, Mark would hear a child's voice humming a nursery rhyme from the empty guest room. His daughter started talking to an imaginary friend she called Lily, who lived in the walls. The turning point came one evening when Mark was working late in his study. He heard his daughter giggling upstairs and assumed she was playing. But then he heard the humming, the same cold nursery rhyme, right behind him. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was empty. He raced upstairs to his daughter's room and found her fast asleep in her bed. He stood there, frozen, listening to the faint humming echoing from the hallway. He knew then that they weren't alone. Lily wasn't imaginary. They spent the next week investigating the house's history and discovered that a young girl named Lily had lived there a century ago. The records were sparse, but her story ended abruptly, without explanation. The family couldn't stay another night. They packed their bags and left, never looking back. To this day, Mark says he sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night, certain he can hear a faint humming just outside his bedroom door. What would you do in that situation? Would you run? Or would you try to find out who or what is sharing your home? Our next account is even more personal. It's about something that isn't tied to a place, but to a person. This comes from a young woman named Chloe, a college student living in a dorm. One night, she woke up abruptly around 3 a.m. The room was pitch black, but she felt an immense weight on her chest, pinning her to the bed. She tried to scream, to move, but her body wouldn't respond. Her eyes darted around the room, and that's when she saw it. A tall, slender figure stood in the corner, its form made of pure darkness, more solid and black than the surrounding shadows. It had no face, no features, just an empty, terrifying void. She was paralyzed, forced to stare at this thing as it watched her. The pressure on her chest intensified until she thought her ribs would break. Just as she was about to pass out, it vanished, and she gasped for air, finally able to move. She dismissed it as sleep paralysis, a terrifying but explainable phenomenon. But it happened again the next night, and the night after that. Every time the figure seemed to be closer to her bed. She started being afraid to go to sleep. During the day, she'd see it from the corner of her eye, a flicker of shadow in a crowded lecture hall, a tall shape standing at the end of a long corridor. It was following her. Desperate, she reached out to her grandmother, who told her stories about shadow people, entities that feed on fear. She advised Chloe to fight back, to show it she wasn't afraid. The next time she woke up paralyzed, the figure was standing right beside her bed, leaning over her. She couldn't scream, but in her mind she shouted with all her might, "Get out! You are not welcome here! I am not afraid of you!" She focused all her energy, all her will, into those silent words. For a moment the figure seemed to recoil. The pressure on her chest lessened. She repeated the words over and over until suddenly the figure dissolved into the darkness and she was free. It never came back. Chloe believes that whatever it was, it lost its power when she lost her fear. But she never truly feels alone in the dark anymore. These stories remind us that the world is full of mysteries we can't explain. That sometimes, the most terrifying things aren't monsters from movies, but the unseen presences that linger just beyond our senses. So tonight, when you turn off the lights and climb into bed, listen closely. Is that just the house settling, or is it something else? Thank you for joining me in the shadows tonight. If you have a story you'd like to share, leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales. Sleep well if you can.